Hello and welcome to the 7th session here on my Not Your Average Bible Studies. My name is Allie with A. Marie Speaks, and this series is a non-traditional look at the New Testament from a first-time reader, myself, and it is sort of under the lens of a metaphysical, esoteric reading and discovery. If you're new, welcome. Thank you so much for joining. I hope you listen to the previous sessions that have brought us up into chapter 5, Matthew, where I will be picking back up today. I'm not going to go over things that I've already brought up, of course. So if you are curious and new, feel free to jump back into those at your leisure. I'll put a link in the description or in the comment section for episode or session number 1. I don't know, what's the difference between the terminology? I've designated myself here. But for some reason I'm calling these sessions. So welcome. And if you're not new, thank you so much for coming back. And I wanted to just, first of all, say today is Sunday, January 12th, so I don't forget what day we're here. We left off reading 31 and 32, and of course the rest of 5 and even further on is are these verbatim sort of teachings from Jesus, and he's doing a bit of correcting here. I kind of played around on my Telegram channel by saying that he's doing a bit of his own deconstructing of distortions that I find myself doing in my latest video series, taking these sort of presumptions and terms, these concepts that seem to be the prevalent definitions, and diving into them and asking why, sensing there's incorrect wrongness about them, a negative alignment, an undertone, a forced placement of usage that is negatively aligned, and trying to discover why that is, to fix it and realign it in the way that is truly positive service, that is really actually service to others in a caring, unconditional love type of frequencies, healing and forgiveness, right? And so he's going to pick up back with 33 and say, again, ye have heard that it hath been said by them of old time, thou shalt not forswear thyself, but shalt perform unto the Lord thine oaths. Now, what does this really mean here in sort of old-timey language? I've reread this a few times, and I'm not really saying I have a definitive meaning here, but for myself, it's when we read these kinds of scriptures in the language that they're presented in, it is important for us to take our time with it and to really dissect it and translate it, and then be able to interpret it in a way, in words that we can understand for ourselves today. And so, to me, it's a bit like saying, put your money where your mouth is, or actions speak louder than words. These other kinds of show me, don't tell me kind of guidance points when it comes to interacting with others. And again, so many of us do this. We swear to it. We have these really embellished promises spouted out that are full of all of these grand intentions at the start of something or before you've even gotten into anything. And when it comes down to it, perhaps it's, you can't really follow with all you've promised. And that's sort of, I believe the guidance and true law behind these sort of age-old sayings. It's just another way of saying exactly what he said here, is the why we don't swear about something, and that why we should only, the oath that we want to keep, the promise, the goal that we have, if we keep it within ourselves and speak it to the Lord, God, our higher self, even see it, speaking it to your ancestors. I love that recognition and connectivity point, that I hearken to that in my own practice a lot. And, perform to them and speak to that, the oaths, the promises, the goals and desires. There's no reason to have to overcommit yourself or tell anyone about it. And he gets a little bit more into that ahead. Here, I think maybe he's talking again about really swearing upon something, having the need to prove your truth to another, which is, another sort of angle that you can look at this as. So thou shalt not forswear thyself, but shalt perform unto the Lord thine oaths. But I say unto you, swear not at all, neither by heaven, for it is God's throne, nor by earth, for it is his footstool, neither by Jerusalem, for it is the city of the great King. Neither shalt thou swear by thy head, because thou canst not make one hair white or black. But let your communication be yeah, yeah, nay, nay. For whatsoever, is more than these cometh of evil. And just like I talked about the embellishments, the lies, the grand intentions that we layer on top of that yes I will, or that no I can't. The explanations, the distortions, basically, that we're creating on top of a basic answer. Yes I will, or no I won't. There shouldn't really need to be all of these extras thrown on top of it. And I love how he, says basically you have no right to be calling upon all these things, swear to God, swear by Jerusalem, swear on your father's grave, or all of these other things. Who are you to call upon those and think that you in your humble incarnation, in your humanly form here, as a child of God, is to learn here, to grow into your full self? Why set yourself in comparison or have to set your truth against these things? Your truth, word, should be simple and trusted as is. It shouldn't need explanation. It shouldn't need all of these extra added kinds of embellishments, like I've already said. They're distortions. Sorry, I hope that wasn't too loud in the background, but I noticed that the commercials are popping in, and so I needed to pause this. And I'm going to take a sip of my coffee and keep it candid. Very sorry for anybody who finds that like a pet peeve. I sometimes do myself. So forgive me for that, but it's much easier than having to pause it and try to edit it out and come back. And same thing with the commercials. I really am just going to pause through it and let it go and then turn it back on when I notice. Because it keeps me in the moment of what I'm thinking and focused on what I'm doing here in my own practice, instead of falling into what other things are going on around. And so let's jump back into here. Jesus, I really love how he's just saying, kind of like, cut to the chase. We shouldn't need all of these extra reasonings and to call in all of these other higher people, or to have to have some sort of grand external confirmation to say you'll do something, to say you're worth it, to say your word is your word, and you will follow through. Now, I feel like this, of course, when we don't follow through and when it's not true is when it needs all of these sort of extras on top. You need frill, you need a costume to hide underneath and to say it's different than last time, or make some sort of circumstances out of the normal from last time is to excuse away the behavior from last time and say it will be different this time. And that's a whole other thing about trying to maintain a fresh mind and newness with others, and to not hold them into these stale versions of past selves, of mistakes or dishonored states or shadowed negativities. We don't want to be, I'm sure you don't, I know I don't want to be held to those past versions of myself that are much uglier than I am now today. I feel I've done such grand work, and the beauty that I can offer and the goodness and person that I am today shines brighter because of where I've been, and I don't want to excuse it away. I don't want to put it underneath a mat and say I never was that. But I certainly don't want to be held into that to say that I have to be that forever because I once chose to be that way. Right? There's this open transparency and comfortability of sovereign acceptance that really comes when we mature, or should come when we're allowed to mature. But we've really been stunted and retarded, humanity I'm speaking about, in the growth of our heart and empathy, emotions, and understanding about real positive alignment. And we've been forced in this focus of negative growth. That's a depletion. It's a wilted, toxic growth, and we've all been birthed into this. But we have to remember it's not the only way. Great teachers and words, like here in Jesus' words, they teach us how to break out of this. And now I'm getting a little carried away, and I'm almost going to get into historical references. I'm not going to. Instead, I'm going to go back to his words here and pick it back up and say at verse 38, "Ye have heard that it hath been said, an eye for an eye, and a tooth for a tooth. But I say unto you, that ye resist not evil, but whoso shall smite thee on thy right cheek, turn to him the other." Now, this is such amazing deep work. I love what he's attempting to teach here. And it really has to be, a lot of us have to come around the long way in order to get this, because the response and the reactivity, the sort of redemption, and this forced version of service retribution that is the eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth, that truth that is a law of the negative alignments system orientation, is this equal restricted version of give and take, that only X service will be allowed, and when X service is offered, Y's retribution is the only correct one to offer. And of course, there's this sort of foundational rightness of equality that is the standalone evidentiary pillar that gets forced when we have to stick by this sort of truth and law. And it's very black and white. And when we look at some things that are very black and white with a forced perspective, we should understand that that is a negative alignment, and bring it back into wholeness and say, well, if it's a forced negative alignment, then there has to be a mere reflective, positive aspects to it, because it's not all-encompassing. So it's missing something, clearly. Then we learn, it's missing something. Let's try to see what it's missing. Well, it's missing compassion. It's missing fluid change, incorporation of newness, in individual, unique circumstances that have caused this eye to be, plucked out, or the tooth to be bashed out, or whatever. is causing this rule and law. And instead of trying to say who's more right than the other, who deserves what sort of punishment, negative retribution to the action, Jesus is saying, flip it on its head completely. Don't even try to fight evil with evil, negative with a negative punishment, but try, cognitive, positive solution here by saying, thank you, can I have another, please? And this kind of response in itself is an alchemic catalyst. And depending on the circumstance and who the other is, who has inflicted the harm, it can be a complete flip on their head. It can correct their system. They can say, whoa, wait a minute. How can I, how could you respond like that? And it can cause a ripple effect for them to be able to finally look at their action from third angle, from this third party view, from the role of the observer a bit, crack their really forced first person view that they've been jammed into so deeply that they're allowing themselves to hurt another out there, right? In the first place, because we have to remember that that person's been pushed to do whatever action is abusive or negative or hurtful in the first place. It doesn't come out of nowhere. And when we can offer or respond in a way that isn't that person's expected response, would be to bash them back or hurt them back, or to cry and crinkle and crumble down like the ideal victim. They only have two ideas that they think they're going to get back, either a bigger bully with a bigger fist or a big victim. And they're sort of winning, but when you pop in this third different sort of neutral setting response, it can be a game changer. And so anyways, to move on to 40, and if any man will sue thee at law and take away thy coat, let him have thy coat also, right? It's like, who cares? You're so mad about whatever you think that I've done to you that you feel like you deserve my coat now? Well, then have it. Here you go. No problem. And whoso shall ever compel thee to go a mile, go with him twain. Give him that asketh thee, and from him that would borrow of thee, turn not thou away. It's here again, offering out, instead of this sort of habitual usury clause of retribution that comes with giving and letting someone borrow from you, right? And this is a huge thing of Jewry, but of other, it's a conditional mentoring thing of the matrix as well. But it's incorrect. It's a malalignment, and it's a negative alignment because it's out there with strings attached. So instead, just give freely, is basically what he's saying. Ye have heard that it hath been said, thou shalt love thy neighbor and hate thine enemy. But I say unto you, love your enemies, bless them that curse you, do good to them that hate you, and pray for them which despitefully use you and persecute you. This is such a valid, amazing, alchemic teaching and practice. Unbelievably difficult. So simple and utopian-esque. Rose-tinted glasses to be able to read the words, to speak them and say them. To envision yourself as living like that, or pretend at times of your best self. Maybe you have met it once or twice, and so, oh, I could do that. Oh yeah, I could do that all the time. I did it once. Oh, brother. But to really, every moment and every day, do this. True work. At the benefits of just trying it on for size. My life has changed immensely. The compassion and the unconditional love, that the deeper layers that I find within this task, it's infinite, it's never ending, for it changes every time with each anew, myself anew. And it's never over, and it's an eternal practice. And recognizing that and relaxing into the hugeness of that, and then knowing that it's never over. And so actually, I have nothing more to do than I've already done. And I've done as best as I can. So wow, it feels great. I'm ahead of the game, actually. And I can just say, I'm doing my best. I am trying. I am trying to see the best in each person, even see the goodness in the ugly. I try to love my enemies. Anytime that there's negativity placed upon me, or I feel myself cursing myself, I try to break it and free myself. And if I feel or I have these thoughts, these third-party external things of who might be persecuting me in what ways, and have these sort of arrows to sling at me, whether they're insults or actual harm wished upon me, or seeing me in a way that is incongruent to my truths, really trying to relax and put myself back in full perspective, and know that only God, the Father, sees my full journey, sees my triumphs and my falls, sees me get back up every time. And that's all that matters, for that's the real truth. And he goes in further to say this, and sort of supporting us in how we can really do take on these great tasks. He says, that ye may be the children of your Father which is in heaven. For he maketh his sun rise on the evil and on the good, and sendeth rain on the just and on the unjust. I love this, because when I read this, I said, wow, I had already been shown this beautiful metaphor, and I've already spoken about it in videos years back. So if you go back in any of my videos where I'm talking about the slave-master cycle and trying to get out of the negative alignments, maybe 2-3 years ago, I was given this beautiful metaphor and working about metaphysical light and the sun, the great logos of our sun, and the parable working of how the sun shines on plants, animals, and humans. All of the rays alike shine down on our planet in the full spectrum, as but each one receives the rays that are meant for them in the ways that are meant for them, with the directions riding on there for growth and light and movement, for nutrition, for whatever their density and dimension needs to incorporate from the great logos. They are receiving that individually, but all the rays shine down equally onto us. Yet we get the nutrition, we get the light, we receive the warmth I'm not taking any more warmth, I'm not taking light, I'm not taking love. It's impossible to receive more light than the person standing next to me in the sun, right? Of course, impeding, like they're standing under a tree or something like this, but I'm saying in the full, in the metaphor of standing on equal footing. Just like when we breathe, this was another deeper layer that I understood this. You're not taking air away from anyone else when you breathe. Just like that there's a metaphor out there and a great visualization. I forget who even said it. Might have been an Eastern old tradition, even a Chinese monk or Tibetan monk or something, about taking a spoon of water from the ocean every day. You're never going to go back to the ocean and it's empty because of the spoon you've been taking. Yes. Anyways, back to verse 46. For if ye love them which love you, what reward have ye? Do not the publicans, even the publicans, the same? Now, these 46 and 47 and 48, I spent a long time on these verses. I wrote journal entries, and I looked up words all around these, because This is very deep, and this is multifaceted. First layering is, let's think about who he's actually speaking to, the times, the people, and the separation here between the Romans of the time, the Roman Catholic Church at the time, the Jews, all of the different peoples that were flourishing and alive, the demographics, the cultures, the ethnical backgrounds that are all living and growing and fighting and warring and at the same times in these places here, you know. This is really deep work in many layers, just for these people, for Jesus to say this to these people at their time, right? Because basically he's saying, if to love those who already love you is easy. To like someone who likes you already, to like people who think the same as you is easy. But what about those who think differently than you? Right? That's where the true reward is at. That's where the true soul work becomes, you know, that's where we become sculptors, or the stone and blade meet. You know, it's the forging in the fire when you have to try to love someone who doesn't think like you, who thinks opposite of you, who thinks badly of you. Think of when you have a fight with a family or an extended family because they don't like something about you, or you don't like something about them. How difficult it would be, and is, to love them through that. And then strangers. It's, you know, when there's not that quote-unquote blood tie, that forced forgiveness and reconciliation by culture or society, or your own sort of guilt and shame there, because it's part of your direct experience and world that you're presented with, right? If when it's strangers, people you don't know, you could just disentangle and detach. It's much easier to create hate, to create this huge ball of meanness, because it's different and so disassociated from you. You know, to see an enemy and not like them, and to feel anger or to seek negative retribution against them. But when we have a child, you know, or someone that you love, it's much harder to offer hate, you know, hate towards them, to have real meanness, abuse, to offer negative retribution to whatever action they've offered up. And I think very much, too, this is a huge part about the wording and the choice of Father and Son. You know, it's such a deep family connection there. There's this alchemy that happens when you have a child. You know, it's a very tangible manifestation of this. It's not necessary, because anyone who hasn't had children, you know, can certainly understand it. It's just that is a more tangible working for people. But here he doesn't even use the family model again. He uses publicans, tax collectors, people who are supposedly heartless, who care only about money, right? Even the most greedy of people, they like people, you know, people who love them, people who pay them, people who respond to their service the way that they expect to be responded to, right? They love that. More of that. Yeah, sure, no problem. Let's have more of that, please. Yeah. But if it's anything unexpected, that's when it's the problem. And so he says, I'm going to repeat what he's saying here, because this is, you know, really prevalent. And like I said, it's prevalent to the people that he's speaking to at the times, but then also when we just choose to interpret it in our own world and life, it's amazing. It's an amazing work. But I say unto you, love your enemies, bless them that curse you, do good to them that hate you, and pray for them which despitefully use you and persecute you, that ye may be the children of your Father which is in heaven. For he maketh his sun rise on the good and on the evil, and sendeth rain on the just and on the unjust. For if ye love them which love ye, what reward have ye? Do not even the publicans do the same? And if ye salute your brethren only, what do ye more than others? Do not even the publican also? Be ye therefore perfect, even as your Father which is in heaven is perfect. And so he's saying that the Father in heaven loves all. Both the person who you are as the victim and that which has been the bully or the abuser in the scenario, the eye for the eye scenario, or your disagreement or your hardship that you're facing. Or in the case, even in the direct case, in all humankind, God created every man in the image and with the birthright bestowed upon him this gift of life, conscious awareness. The fact that we are man, that is the proof in the pudding. That is the gift in action. And if you don't honor that and offer that out to every man, woman, and child that you're around, each different ethnicity, every culture, every different kind of person around you in the same way, I mean, you're not really acting like the pure Father, your Father that you're quoting from, that you're saying that you are the chosen people of, that you're claiming that you're the closest to, right? And now I'm kind of speaking as Jesus could be speaking into his culture, to the people that he claims as his, that he is speaking of as, if ye salute your brethren only, right? If you see those of the Jewish rite and culture as more closer to God, as more important, as better than all those others out there, well, what do you expect? And then how do you preach this oneness and this all-encompassing God, the Father of all, the great creator and wholeness, at the same time trying to choose this sort of segregated, select ownership, this hierarchy of worth and value? It doesn't make any sense. And furthermore, to go and say that what you call as evil, or what they look to as greedy publicans, goy, heathens, subhuman, whatever kind of gradient and verbiage they choose to call these other people, Jesus has, even says the gall to say right to them that don't only tax collectors already love those who love them? Don't those who are evil do this? So how are you saying that, just because you're doing that too, it doesn't really add up here. So I think he's trying to help them to see that a segregated version of service that they have been sort of pigeonholed into is not exactly as all-encompassing as they're trying to pretend it is. And to instead try to practice these breakaway truths that are rooted in their 10 times 10 distortions that they've allowed. They're sort of offshoots that they have veined out and traveled away from the main artery of what is the truth. I feel Jesus is really trying to bring it back to those main arteries, those main pathways that are really strong current that we can just harken back to and get back down to business, the truth, the reality of things. We can get where we're going in a much more clear, honorable way. So now I've gone about over half an hour, and we really have ended chapter 5, so perfect timing. And I feel like I got to talk about the things that I wanted to bring up here for the most part. So thank you so much for listening to me. And thank you for your beautiful contribution to our collective. We wouldn't be the same without you. I hope you have a wonderful, peaceful, joyous, Sacred Sunday. If you do get to listen to this here on Sunday Live, thank you for joining me. I hope to put up a couple more of these perhaps before next Sunday, but if anything, I definitely will be back next Sunday for another. Hope you'll join me then. Have a beautiful week in the meantime. And if you feel called to share, I would love to hear anything, whether it's responses to things that I've brought up or your own personal interpretations to those verses or other verses, other versions of verses and translations. Feel free to leave comments if you find this on YouTube or BitChute so that others could see that there are live organic people listening and creating spaces of communion and conversation to seek truth and to cast light on each other so that we can help seek truth together in a more lighted, transparent ways. So thank you again for listening, and I'll catch you next time.